Hello everyone, I'm Peter Rising. Welcome back to Cloud Conversations once again. In the previous video, I talked all about Microsoft and Azure Cybersecurity. We had a broad helicopter view look over what cybersecurity means to those products and services. So we've now got a good understanding of what they are, why they're there. Now we're going to dig a little bit deeper and have a look at some of the individual technologies that we introduced to you in that last video. And in this one, we're going to start with Microsoft Entra. Now, Microsoft Entra is the identity and access technologies all brought together in one unified area where you can manage your identity and access configurations. So let's, without further ado, dive in and take a look at what's available within Microsoft Entra.
Okay, so let's take a look under the hood of Microsoft Entra. And here we can see the Entra Admin Center, which is accessible from entra.microsoft.com as, in this case, a global administrator. And we can see that the Microsoft Entra portal is divided up into three technology principles, which are Azure Active Directory, permissions management, and verified ID. And we have this little welcome message at the top as well, just here, which shows us that this is a new, easy to use, integrated approach to managing your entire identity infrastructure. And we can definitely expect, as they're saying here, more content to arrive in the Entra Admin Center as we move forward. So keep checking back for updates, as the message says right here, because this is fresh out of the box. It's only going to get bigger and better and more functionality coming into the Entra Admin Center as it evolves. But we can only take a look at what is here right now. So let's have a little drive through the Entra Admin Center, starting with Azure Active Directory. We can access Azure Active Directory from the left menu navigation here, or we can go to it right from the tile on the larger portion of the screen there as well. But if you're not familiar with Azure Active Directory, and you're watching this video, then where have you been? But just as a quick reminder, Azure Active Directory, more commonly known as Azure AD, is a system within Microsoft Azure that enables identity management to configure the accessibility of your users and groups and give them access to services and resources. And although it shares much of the same name with the on-premises Active Directory, it's not the same thing. But you know all that. I'm telling you how to suck eggs for sure, most of you who are watching this video. But Azure Active Directory, or Azure Active Directory, is what we're going to take a look at first. Here we can manage our users. On the left-hand panel, we can get an overview as well. If we click on that overview screen there, we can see details about our tenant. We've got our tenant ID here, our primary .on Microsoft domain name, our license level, Azure AD Premium P2 in this case. This is an unused tenant that I used to play about and test things, so hence why I'm not too precious about sharing my tenant ID here. But this gives us our overview of our Azure Active Directory. We can see that this is who I am. I am the admin user for this. I'm a global admin. I can get information on my secure score for identity, so I can go into there. I can see that my Azure AD Connect is enabled and was last synced more than 1 day ago. There's a very good reason for that. That's because I have my Azure AD on a virtual machine, which I have stopped because I don't want to incur lots of costs to my Visual Studio subscription. So I only turn that on when I need to. This is one of the things you definitely have to watch out if you're starting to leverage things in Azure, as I'm sure many of you will know. We can see here we have links to many of the services we can use to manage our identities, such as access reviews, to make sure that only the right people have continued access to files and folders and roles and permissions across Azure Active Directory. You can configure your users' authentication methods to enable passwordless authentication. Azure AD domain services lift and shift legacy applications running on premises into Azure. All sorts of things on this main screen. They're trying to sort of guess what the quick and easy things you want to get access to on this splash page, for want of a better word. And you can get some quick actions here. You can add a user or a group and so on and so forth. If you really want to drill down, though, you need to go into this left-hand menu here and manage things from these sections. So here we have users. We can manage the user settings. And as you can see, if you click onto any of these selections, it looks and feels very, very much like the Azure portal, portal.azure.com. And that's because it is. It's basically pulling that same experience, but pulling it through into this unified portal of Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So it looks a little bit out of place, I think. I think the menu on the left looks a little bit disjointed from that Azure experience, but there's probably going to be a refresh for that coming in time, I would suspect. But who knows? Watch this space. But it's good to have all of this in the one place, though. It's going to make things much more convenient to be able to get to these things all from the Entra Admin Center, plus being able to look at these new features that we'll look at as well in permissions management and verified ID. So yeah, we've got devices in here as well. We can have a look at our device overview so we can see all of our familiar device management settings here in the overview, our BitLocker keys, audit logs, all of that good stuff. We can see all of our devices. I don't have any devices in here because this is a very, very fresh tenant for lab purposes. We can look at our applications. We can see what apps we've got in here, our application proxies, our user settings for enterprise applications, all of our consent requests. So this is the bulk of the content within this section of Azure Active Directory. This is nothing new. This is content that you are able to access from within the Azure portal if you go to portal.azure.com or aad.portal.azure.com to get you straight into that Azure Active Directory experience. You can access some of this content from the Microsoft 365 Admin Center as well at admin.microsoft.com. But this is just unifying all that, bringing it all together in this one place. Protect and secure, we can get access to conditional access in here and see all of our policies for CA, all of that good stuff. Our Azure AD identity protection settings for user risk policies and sign-in risk policies, risky users, risky sign-ins, all that good stuff. Our authentication methods here, where you can configure FIDO2 keys, the MS Authenticator, all of this good stuff for your authentication methods, all available through the Azure portal as well, of course. Password reset for self-service password reset or SSPR, available from here too. Some custom attribute settings there, and risky activities, which this is one that bothers me slightly. I don't quite know why that is specifically there when you can get to that from up above in the identity protection section as well. So that seems like a duplication of effort. Identity governance, we have here entitlement management. So this is where you can configure all of the access packages that you may want to configure to grant users access to a collection of features that they may need when they're onboarding based on their role, attributes, that sort of thing. Then we have got where are we at? That's entitlement management, access reviews to ensure that users have the appropriate permissions. And admins and users themselves can check by doing access reviews if their permission levels to resources and so on and so forth is appropriate. Privileged identity management, something very similar, granting access to privileged roles on a just-in-time basis. There's a lot of privileged roles within Microsoft 365, such as the one I'm using right now, Global Admin, and through here you can grant access to those features. Then we've got our external identities overview here. So here we can see all of our B2B settings, cross-tenant access settings, our B2B collaboration, there we go, that sort of thing, identity providers that are configured here, XAML and WS-Fed identity providers, our external collaboration settings, and so on and so forth. Yeah, what guest users have access to, guest invite settings, and all that. We can expand this out, and there's a whole host more settings here. If you expand out the full left-hand menu, we can get into our identity secure score, our security center, if it takes it back up to that protect and secure section for a much more expanded look at some of the selections. There's a ton of stuff in here, a ton of stuff. A one-stop shop for managing your users' identities. Company branding, that's another feature that absolutely should be configured if you're using Microsoft 365, if you're using Azure AD, and if you have Azure AD P1 functionality, you really need to configure company branding, because it's going to give your login screen that personalized experience, which is just another small thing that you can do to protect yourself against attacks. It's very, very simple for malicious actors to clone familiar looking web pages, the Microsoft sign-in screen being one of those, which is very, very easy to do. It's less easy for them to do that if your sign-in screen is personalized to your organization. We've got hybrid management in here as well. We've got Azure AD Connect. We can see all of our Azure AD Connect status and errors and health and synchronization if we have ADFS set up as well, and all that good stuff. And we can have a look at sync errors if there are any, and the latest data is not available, probably because my Azure AD Connect server is not started. The sync services that we've got here and the domain that it is linked to. Let's have a look at the settings. Not much in there. So then we have monitoring and health. So this is sign-in events. So this is sign-in logs for Azure AD and audit logs as well. Absolutely crucial that these are monitored on a regular basis. Provisioning logs, log analytics, diagnostic settings, workbooks, usage and insights. There is a whole host of stuff within Azure Active Directory within the Microsoft Entra Admin Center. So I don't see any real value in going into any long-winded explanations or demos for any of these features, because I would hope anyway that most of the audience watching are quite familiar with what these things do. This is just to illustrate that there is now a different way of leveraging these services from within the Entra portal. So that is part one of this lovely new shiny admin center for Microsoft Entra. Okay, what is the next thing then? We have Entra permissions management. And I already have this open on the next tab here. So we can see this is my Entra permissions management homepage. So what exactly is it? What is Entra permissions management? It's a cloud infrastructure entitlement management solution, or CIEM, which I don't know how you would say that acronym actually, because we have SIEM for SIEM or SIM, depending on how you want to say it, for security, information and event management. How would you say this one? KEEM, or you wouldn't say SIEM, so I guess it would be KEEM, but that's a debate all of its own. But this is here, this cloud infrastructure entitlement management solution is here to provide visibility into permissions that are assigned to all of your identities. For example, workloads and user identities may be overprivileged, um, and so on and so forth. And this can connect across multi-cloud infrastructures. It can connect to Azure. As we can see, I have mine connected to Azure here, but it can also connect into Google Cloud Platform, GCP, and Amazon Web Services as well. It's quite straightforward to set this up. When you first launch permissions management, you will see this screen here. If I click on the settings cogwheel and go into data collections, the first time you launch it, this is what you will see. And you have to go ahead and create a configuration. So you can see here we've got the 3 tabs along the top. We have AWS, we have Azure, we have GCP. So we can switch between these, we can go in and we can create a configuration to connect to these services. And when you do so, you get a lot of information on the steps you need to take to add those configurations. You get command line options and instructions and templates in the case of AWS. And we'll just click back there. And it doesn't seem to be too happy. Oh, there we go. Let's close out of that without saving. GCP, similar sort of principles. If we go to the data collectors and create a configuration for GCP, we get instructions there also. But I have an Azure tenant, which I've already connected to. And we can see that the status is this will vary. It's saying in progress at the moment for my onboarded tenant. But that you'll see that status change occasionally. But to create an Azure one, again, it's quite simple. I could add in another one here, and you get these 3 different options here for how you can manage your Azure data collections. Option 1, which is the one I did, and the simplest one to do, is to automatically manage, allow permissions management to automatically manage all authorization systems. And if you toggle between, and here we get these wonderful instructions here on the steps you need to take. If you go to the next options, you get the steps again. Also here, the advantage of this one is that you can enter up to 10 subscriptions at a time by putting a comma after each ID. So here's where you can bulk add collections to connect to Azure, and you get these wonderful PowerShell instructions as well, and you can get instructions for how to do it via the console. And finally, again, this last one, select authorization systems, and again, we have these wonderful PowerShell commands which will help us to add these in. So once you've done the necessary, once you've selected your method of adding your Azure to permissions management, you either need to put in the appropriate PowerShell command for your tenant for your subscription or your management group with your subscription ID on it. And if we scroll along here, or your management group, depending on which you prefer to do, you can do that within the PowerShell, or you can do that in the Azure command line. Whichever your preference is. That's nice and straightforward. Once you're connected, you put in the commands. As long as you got your right subscription ID or your management group name, you should just hit enter on that command. It should just go away and do it. Nice and simple. The console is also pretty simple as well. That's the method that I used to add mine. And what you need to do there is, I'll show you how I did that. I will just go into back to Azure. That's my AAD sync server from earlier. And you do this from your subscriptions So if I click on subscriptions from within portal.azure.com, there's my subscription there. I'll just collapse that. And I want to go into access control, IAM. And I want to go into role assignments. And the role assignment that I'm interested in is the reader role assignment. So once in role assignments, I want to go into add and add a role assignment. Here's my reader. I want to select that, highlight it, and go into members. And the member that I need to add into this section is, if I select members, cloud, there we go, cloud infrastructure entitlement management. So we select, add that in, review and assign, and review and assign. So there we go. I'll not do that because that's already in this case. Otherwise, my Entra permissions management would not work. So there we can see that's already there. We can see the name, uh, the role that we've granted, and so on and so forth. So nice and simple. And once you've done that, once you've got that done by the console or the PowerShell, you just need to verify now and save. And that is what you need to do to get you to this stage here. Once you've verified, you will see this dashboard view where you have your PCI or your permission creep index. Here we can get some metrics from the graph here, and we can see broken down into the index here. There are 3 identities, 2 high, 1 low. So we're getting some risk levels there. We can change the view into a column view there, toggle between those. Here we can get the subscription permission creep index trend for the last 90 days. We can download that if we want to and export that. If we scroll down, we can get some metrics on the findings. We've got 2 super users, we've got 2 over provisioned active users, we've got an inactive app and an inactive user. And then that's from an identity point of view. And then from a resource point of view, we have 3 open network security groups, NSGs. We've got 2 Microsoft managed keys. I'm not too worried about this because there's absolutely zilch in this tenant, but this is just there to show you the sort of things that you would be looking at and that you would need to respond to. You can drill down here and get more information on what these things are. And if you click further, it'll open another tab and take you right to those reports and show you more detail about what's going on. So, and here you can select the user or users, and you can add or remove tags here to apply further actions to them at a later time. But so yeah, lots of very, very good stuff in this Entra permissions management dashboard. We can see some analytics here. If we go into the analytics section, we can get some settings here that we can drop down and apply some filters. So here we can see that our authorization system type is Azure, our authorization system, identity type, we can switch between user, we've got highlighted at the minute, we can switch to service principals and apply that. No data found there. We can switch to resource and apply that. No data found, so we can go to all and apply, which is just going to show us our 3 users again, obviously, because we've got nothing under the other categories. Identity filters, there's only the one there at the moment, risky. Identity PCI state, we can switch between all and include or exclude in the calculation. Task types here, all or high risk tasks, and we can search this as well. So you can imagine if you had a lot of data here, you could filter and search, and that's going to get you a lot of information. So we can see here our admin user. We've got some reds on here, and if we drill down, it's going to show us information about all of these unused items, and we can really drill down there and see what's going on. So that's for user groups. We can also see Azure roles as well. So lots going on in the analytics area of the Entra permissions management. There's also a remediation section as well. So in here we can create some roles and policies for remediation. So we don't have any here at the moment, but we could go in and create a role. How would you like to create the role? We can create a role based on activity of the user or groups or apps. You can do it from an existing role or a new role completely. So we could do a rule based on a user. We could select the user that we want to add, and then we can tasks performed in the last however many days. In the settings, we can choose if we want to ignore certain things like these non-Microsoft read actions or include read-only tasks, so we can toggle those on or off. We can select our user just by hitting the plus in there and then go next. So here we can call this whatever role we want to call it. We'll just, for argument's sake, because my brain won't work here, I'll just call it role 1. And then we can add in available tasks for what we want this role to do. So we can look at Microsoft add-ins, for example. We could add to the already selected tasks here that are in and populated already for Microsoft Compute and Microsoft Hybrid Compute and so on and so forth. We can drill down and see what these do as well. So go next. And here we go. We've got our selected tasks. There's 20 in total in there. We've got some JSON and script content in there also. I can't speak much to JSON and script if I'm being brutally honest, but you get the idea. We'll not go through and create an actual role, because just to give you an idea of the sort of things that you can do with that. But let's cancel out and yes, I will indeed. So roles and policies, we can look at permissions here as well. So role and policy templates, we can create templates here. We can do things like requests, look at the requests, look at pending requests. You can create new requests from here. So very, very a plethora of things that you can do within this remediation center. And we can look at our settings here as well. We can request role and policy filters and request settings. There's a lot that we can configure in this area. There's an autopilot section as well, so we can create autopilot rules in here. We can create a new rule in here. So the one that we have available to us here is remove permissions for unused applications, manage identities. And we can go through and create those rules in relation to autopilot. There's an auditing section as well, so we can search for audit events. We can put a query in here and then add that query in and get information from the auditing in that way. And there are some reports here as well. There is some system reports that we can look at and export. We can get these in CSV format or Excel format, Excel SX, and we can click on these and generate and download those to get information on lots of good stuff like group entitlements and usage, identity permissions, and permission creep history, and so on and so forth. And there's a lovely little help there, which if you click on it, takes you right into the wonderful docs.microsoft.com, which I can't recommend enough. If you need to know something about permissions management, this is your place to find out what you need to know about it. There's a plethora of information in here. What is it? Onboarding, view your metrics, configured settings for data collection, and down the left here shows you all about how to onboard all the different types of subscriptions and projects. So there's a ton of great stuff there, which is going to help you to use this technology. So absolutely fantastic stuff. So that is a very quick, high-level whistle-stop tour of the Entra permissions management dashboards and a quick look at how you set it up and start using it. Again, as with anything in the Entra Admin Center, I think this is something that it's brand new, it's shiny, it's got a lot in it already. There's going to be a lot of additional things coming into it. I would expect, I think it's going to grow and develop and be a very, very useful resource for identity administrators and to manage your cybersecurity posture in general. So that is the Entra permissions management part of the Entra Admin Center. Okay, on to the final piece of the Microsoft Entra jigsaw, and that is verified ID. This one is the hardest one to both talk about and demonstrate. It's something that I've only glanced at and I'm getting to understand myself, but let's have a talk through it and look through it as much as we can, and we'll maybe revisit this one a bit further down the line. So what is Microsoft Entra Verified ID? Well, it's been around in a previous guise. It's previously known as Azure Active Directory Verifiable Credentials, but it's now Microsoft Entra Verified ID and part of the Microsoft Entra family of products. And it's all about decentralized identity. So we use digital identities all the time at the moment, at work and at home, across apps and services and devices. And it's made up of everything that we do, everything we say and experience in our lives. And it relates to all sorts of things, from purchasing tickets for an event to checking into a hotel, or and so on and so forth. So generally, users will grant consent to several apps and devices, and this approach requires a high degree of vigilance on the user's part to track who has access to what information. So on the enterprise front, collaboration with consumers and partners definitely requires a high-touch orchestration to securely exchange data in a way that maintains privacy and security for all involved. So what Microsoft are doing here, their approach to this is to use a standards-based decentralized identity system which can unlock a new set of experiences that provide users and organizations more control over their data, the lifeblood of any organization, and deliver a higher degree of trust and security for apps, devices, and service providers. So what are decentralized identities, or DIDs? It helps to compare these with current identity systems. So email addresses, social network IDs, these are human-friendly aliases for collaboration, but these are now overloaded to serve as control points for data access across many scenarios beyond collaboration. And this creates a potential problem because access to these IDs can be removed at any time by external parties. So decentralized identifiers, or DIDs, are different. DIDs are user-generated, they are self-owned, globally unique identifiers which are rooted in decentralized systems like ION, and they possess unique characteristics like greater assurance of immutability, censorship resistance, and tamper evasiveness. These attributes are critical for any ID system that is intended to provide self-ownership and user control. Microsoft's verifiable credential solution uses decentralized credentials to cryptographically sign as proof that a relying party or verifier is attesting to information providing that they are the owners of a verifiable credential. So there you go. And that, as you can probably tell by the way I narrated it, is how Microsoft actually describe DIDs on their own docs.microsoft.com page, which I can't recommend highly enough. Reading on a little bit more before we have a little bit of a look in the portal. So what are these verifiable credentials? And the page goes on to say we use IDs in our daily lives. We have things like driver's licenses that are used as evidence of our ability to operate a motor vehicle. Universities will issue diplomas that prove that we attended and attained a level of education. We can use passports to prove who we are to authorities as we arrive to other countries. The data model describes how we could handle these types of scenarios when working over the internet, but in a secure manner that respects users' privacy. So in short, verifiable credentials are data objects consisting of claims made by the issuer attesting information about a subject. These claims are identified by a schema and include the DID issuer and subject. The issuer's DID creates a digital signature as proof that they attest to this information. Okay, so onto the portal. We can see verified ID is here. How does it work? Let's see how far we can take it. I've already had a go at this on another tenant and I got so far, but let's go through it again and see what it all looks like and how potentially you can use this to create, issue and verify decentralized identity credentials for secure interactions. So if we go to verified ID, the first thing that we need to do is set up your organization. And we need to put in an organization name. So what this is, and we highlight the information, is it's a unique identifier for your company and all your credentials, only displayed in the Azure portal. This can be changed later. So we can put this in. So this can be, well, my tenant name is actually called Peter Rising Outlook. So we'll just put something inventive in called Peter Rising Outlook. Bear in mind that this can be changed later. Trusted domain. Now, this is your organization's domain, and it will be used for all of your credentials. Often users you interact with will see this domain and decide whether to trust your request or not. Now, what you will have to do is verify this domain at a later time. This is the point that I got to and couldn't get much further. Now, you do have to add the domain in the HTTPS format. If you try and put it in just as, I mean, I don't have an actual custom email domain added to this tenant, so I would have to go ahead and put in the Rising Outlook on Microsoft.com. I don't know if this will even work actually, but it doesn't like that. It's got to match a format, a valid URI format, and must start with HTTPS. I've not actually tried this with on Microsoft one. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it does like it. Okay, so we've got that far. We've got 2 ticks in the box. Then what we've got to do is select a key from a Azure subscription. Now, do I have any keys? No, I don't. I don't have a key vault. So what you have to do is create a key vault in an active Azure subscription, which has some credit. So doing so, this will take you right into that area where you can do that. So we can go ahead and in my Visual Studio Enterprise subscription, I can select the resource group. I can put in a key vault name. So we will just inventively call this key vault 1. It likes that. Oh, it's already in use, so it doesn't like that. Well, let's call it inventively key vault 2. So it doesn't like that either. So, okay, let's just call the key vault and see if it likes that. Okay, and then let's choose our region for our key vault to be stored. So I will, as I'm in the UK, I will select a UK data center. I'll go for UK West. Pricing tier, there's a choice between standard and premium, which includes support for HSM-backed keys. So there we go. You can learn more about the pricing tier as you hover over that there. Recovery options, soft delete protection will be automatically enabled on this key vault, and this allows you to recover or permanently delete a key vault and secrets for the duration of your retention period. Okay. Then we've got some soft delete settings here. That's enabled by default. Days to retain deleted key vaults 90. Purge protection you can disable or enable, and there we go. So we can review and create that. Run the validation. That will take a few seconds. It certainly did the last time I did that. So I will just have to fill time here while I wait for that. Or if it takes too long, we'll pause the video and resume. There we go. Didn't have to do that. We can now review what we've put in and create our key vault. And the deployment is now in progress. So handy that you can do this actually from within the verified ID setup process within Entra itself. You can obviously do this from within the Azure portal as well. So our deployment is in progress still. Let's give that a few more seconds. And hopefully it will take us to the next stage. Okay, and there we go. The deployment has succeeded. Excellent. So what we can do now is close that. And there we go. We now have the key vault that we've created automatically selected there. And it's showing our resource group there as well with the key vault in there. So we can click on select, and that's it. Okay, advanced. There are a couple of settings in here for alternative trust systems. So the trust system is responsible in maintaining the verification system for verifiable credentials. Most common selection is web, which is the default. You can click on here to learn more about the other selection, ION or ION, which is currently a preview feature. So you can save that and then get started. Okay. Now, this is basically as far as I got in my first attempt at setting up verified ID on one of my other tenants. Now, you need to register decentralized ID in registration before creating credentials or verification requests. So what we have here is the domain. Well, our organization name is there. That's all good. We have our domain in the right format, but it says it may not be verified. So you have to go and verify that domain. It tells you here how to verify this domain's ownership, but I'm heading up against this error. We could not sign the well-known document, and it's telling me to make sure that the target key vault has the following access policy assigned for to the user operating this blade. So that's the cryptographic operations sign. So there's some tasks for me to do there to get further. And then there's a verification request here as well to be selected to generate a request for your website or application. So you can click onto this and select which issuers that you want to accept credentials from. So imagine you've got further, you've verified, and you want to select the issuers that you want to trust. So if you look in this box here, you can click the drop down, and if you type in just a letter, there we go. We can see some of the existing issuers within the Entra Verified ID network. These are people who've gone through this process and are available as Entra Verified ID issuers that you can select in the process. But that is pretty much as far as I have got with Entra at the moment. In terms of verifying my my domain, I've not got that far yet because I think it's a bit more complex potentially than verifying domain in the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. I don't know at this point. This is basically as far as I've got. So there is more to come on this. I will be doing some more research on this to see where to go next. But until you get that all properly set up, these sections here are not going to be valid and available to you just yet until you've registered your decentralized ID in registration. So there we go. And if you click, this is the point I got to as well, actually. I forgot about this bit. And it's saying that your domain is used to build trust with others by proving you own the domain. So it's going to want some sort of record added to your DNS. And yeah, here's the domain. And if you click on register, it tells you how to do it. You can copy this this text here, this code here. You can download that and then add that into wherever you need to register that. But obviously, this is not a real. This is a .on Microsoft domain, so I can't do that. And then after you've done that, you can refresh, and then you should be good to go. So that's the DID registration, and then there's the domain not verified registration as well, which is giving me that error. So these are the two next steps that I need to do. So when I have a bit more time, I will play a bit more with that, and we can do another video with what this looks like a little bit further down the road. But hopefully that's given you an idea of what verified ID is all about, what the concept of it is, what it's doing. It's basically like a digital trust wallet, essentially, which is absolutely brilliant. I love the idea of this. I think Entra as a whole, I really like the concept. I really like what Microsoft are trying to do with this Entra story. And I think there's lots more to come on this because identity is key. I always say within Microsoft 365, within Azure, whatever you're leveraging within the Microsoft cloud services, identity is key. It's the key part to your cybersecurity journey. It all starts with your identity, getting it right and securing it from the get-go. Amazing. So that ends our video for today. So I will just stop sharing that content now and switch back over to me, and we'll wind this one up. So I want to thank you as ever for joining me on this video in what is an emerging cybersecurity series for Microsoft 365 and Azure. So we had the overview video, which you can go back and check. It's the last one on the list before this one. This one's been all about identity and access with Microsoft Entra. There'll be more to come. There's plenty more to cover in this subject, and more to cover on Entra as well as I learn more about verified ID. Amazing. Thank you so much for joining me on Cloud Conversations as ever. And please don't hesitate to get in touch with myself or any of our hosts on the channel, our wonderful hosts, Kat and Rue and Azure. We are on Twitter at CloudCons365. This YouTube channel that you're watching this on is youtube.com/C/cloudconversations. Please do give us a like and a subscribe. That would be wonderful and most appreciated if you did. So we'll leave it there, and we'll see you next time on another episode of Cloud Conversations very soon. Catch you down the road. Bye-bye.